What is going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. We got some kind of a show for you tonight, and co-hosting with me, as always, is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on, guys?
Yes, so let's get this conversation started. Rob, what is on your mind?
Well, first of all, I was the one that was late today. I was on time.
What are you talking about?
For one.
That's never a thing. It's always your fault.
Even this time, it's my fault.
It's always your fault.
But yeah,
because I can never do any wrong, so it's always your fault.
Very true. Yeah, week's been going pretty well. Just working a lot. My body is very, very tired, but I'm here for an awesome live stream.
Yes. Good. Excellent. Yeah, I actually got some good news today. A friend of mine hit me up about doing doing a project with him, and I will be getting paid.
What? That's great.
Yeah, getting
paid is always nice.
What was that?
Getting paid is always nice,
right? It's I don't ask for much. It's not like I'm asking for. It's not like when I'm doing photo shoots or whatever. I'm not asking for like all green M&Ms or whatever. I just want some money. Call me. If that makes
you're just looking for all green.
I know. I'm just looking for all green, but just not M&Ms. So yeah, that came. So that's a bit of good news for me since.
No, that's great. That's great news.
Yeah. Yes, hopefully it works out. Especially since, because one of the jobs that I interviewed for a while back, I hadn't heard from them in a while, so I called them up, and they said like, oh yeah, it turns out we're not gonna be hiring right now because cause they thought that they were gonna be more busy, or they were gonna need more people than they thought they ended up needing.
I see.
Yeah, so I called them up and said, hey, what's going on with the positions? Like, yeah, we're actually not hiring. We're actually not going to hire anyone right now because we're not as busy as we thought we were, and so blah blah blah.
That sucks.
Yeah. It's hard out there for a player.
It is. It really is.
Oh yeah. That's it. That I don't know if you're too up on the rap music, but I'm not gonna claim that I am also, but I did love this song, "Flavor in Your Ear" by Craig Mack, who was on Bad Boys, Diddy's label, and he came out at the same time as Notorious B.I.G. But he passed away today or yesterday.
Oh damn! No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, at the age of 49 too. So he was still pretty young.
Yeah.
And so
damn, that's.
I mean,
was it like a heart attack or something?
I do believe it was a coronary issue. So. Yeah, I mean, again,
damn,
I wasn't too big on, rap music, during that time. Because what was it? I think I was like 5th or 6th grade when Bad Boys came up or whatever, and then I kind of found Biggie just before he died. But yeah, him so Biggie and Craig Mack came out at the same were coming out at the same time. But yeah, after his I forget. I think he had either 1 or 2 albums, and then he just kind of dropped off the face of the earth.
But man, yeah, that's crazy that that's really young to pass away.
I know, right?
Yeah, just got to
Again,
take
I
care of
guess.
that heart.
Yeah, seriously. And I guess it's also kind. It's like when people who are like relatively close, we're within the same generation as you. It's just kind of like, oh damn.
Yep, Andy. In a couple years, our hearts are gonna explode, and then that's gonna be it.
Right. I hope it's from all the hate. I hope it's from all the hate comments. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Like,
God damn. Dead.
yeah. So, I don't know, a
Well,
lot
we
of.
both have stuff to talk. We both have stuff to talk about. Why don't you go first, Andy?
Are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, you know, um, I think George Orwell, penned 1984 as a warning to about the abuses of governments and authoritarian dictatorial power. I truly do believe he wrote that as a warning and uh, not as prophecy or uh, as a blueprint of how to get to that point. But recently, just a couple of days ago, two or three, I should say three, it was three more right-leaning activists, were detained in England, and it was a politically driven uh, what is it like detaining, because the individuals in question were Lawrence Southern and Brittany Pettibone and Martin Selner, and I guess you could say that these three people lean a little bit more towards the right. I mean, Lauren Southern is, a Canadian journalist activist. And actually, I shouldn't be calling her a she because in Canada, she is officially recognized by the government as a man.
Yep, I remember. Yep, she
Right?
is.
Yeah. I mean, she did a whole video like how easy it was for her to go and get her sex on her official government identification card as male. So yeah, the government of Canada recognizes Lauren Southern, a biological woman, as a man.
That's hilarious.
Yes. And then, yes, Whitney Pettibone. I mean, not Whitney, Brittany Pettibone. She's an author. She also does like some journalism. And then Martin Sellner is an Austrian. I think an Austrian. He sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger, so I'm gonna say Austrian.
Okay.
Yeah, he is a founder of the Austrian branch of Generation Identity. It's I guess I don't want to mischaracterize it, but it's more like it's like Europe's movement to like allow countries to be the countries. So like Italians, and I think they focus a lot on like border security.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, see these three individuals, not together, but well, at least Brittany and Martin were together, but they go and they each get detained by the English government, uh, seemingly for political reasons. Martin was going to give a speech. I forget it's Speaker Square in England, in London, where it's like the only place on in the entire country, you can actually speak your mind. And then it has a rich tradition of noted speakers. Was it Karl Marx spoke there? Vladimir Lenin, George Orwell spoke in that park. And so, Martin Sellner, he was just continuing the tradition of radical people uh, utilizing that space to, voice their opinions. But
Right.
but he was stopped at the border and detained for I think like 3 days. And same thing with Brittany Pettibone. She was there to interview Tommy Robinson, another notable controversial figure on the right. Um, and yeah, they were detained for 3 days, and then finally released. And then Lauren Southern, she was flagged at the border, or she was flagged under, I think, don't quote me on this again, but I think, to my understanding, like England's version of the Patriot Act, it's called Schedule 7, and that's like their terrorism bill. So they could like stop and detain anyone under the suspicion of terrorism.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, they were all eventually released, but then, with Lauren, like the questions were kind of ridiculous. They were kind of asking about her political persuasions, and and then they asked if she was a Christian. She said yes, and then the follow up question was that it's like, oh, what do you think? What do you think about Christians running over Muslims? And it's like, when has that ever happened, or when has that been a thing?
I can't remember that being a thing.
Right? And so, it's really scary that, governments, well, maybe not England because they, the British police, they send policemen to investigate mean Facebook posts. Like that is like
no, that's really like that's what we're gonna waste our resources and time on.
exactly. It's like yeah. So like England's police force is like directed to go to someone's house and question them and talk to them and potentially charge them for a mean tweet or or a satirical Facebook post.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean it's thought police. It's like it's literal thought police. Like I mean, there's that case in Scotland. This guy Count Dankula who taught his girlfriend's dog to zig heil, do the Nazi salute. Right? See that right there with Robert. That's the appropriate response.
It's ridiculous. It's hilarious.
I know, right? It's just, the absurdity of it is, it's just like it's hilarious because you're teaching a dog the Nazi salute. It's not even the Nazi salute. It's just basically teaching the dog to the shake command, and like the dog will put up its paw or whatever.
Right. Oh, man, like have we really like gotten to a point like now to be fair, they don't England doesn't quite have the like what we would have is like the First Amendment.
Yeah, they don't not even at all.
Yeah, so
free speech isn't guaranteed in their constitution.
Right, and that's one thing, but to the point where it's a Western country that claims to have some sort of like freedom, mm-hmm. and has been in the past has been a bastion of like great thinkers, great ideas that have come from England.
Right.
And now it's like, well, what, you don't agree with our crazy thoughts? Well, here's we're going to detain you as terrorists. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on in, well, Europe in general, but England is, especially like London, has become kind of this, really like wackadoo place recently. I heard like their like whatever, the mayor of like London, he's been pretty terrible. And then
Yeah, I mean, he's been pretty lax, or what do you say? Terrorist attacks are just part and parcel of living in a big, in a metropolitan city. It's like,
yeah,
what?
yeah, exactly. That's insane. Like,
So you're saying, oh,
and
it's like, it's part of being, it's part of living in a big city. So you better, suck it up.
and it's just, I don't know. I feel like people have just given up on like liberties and freedoms. And I'm wondering where, when the tide of that like really turned. It's starting to
It's been a 30-year decline. It
yeah,
really has
there
been.
was there was a time where people, not that like you should go crazy with it, but there should be like some sort of level of like patriotism or love for your country, and for the love of freedom and ideas. And
right. I mean,
yeah,
what's
that's
wrong
just,
with what's wrong with being a country? What's wrong with
yeah.
having borders?
But in Europe, that idea is just, it's completely dead. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
just,
mean, yeah, exactly. That was like the first stage. They're testing it out. They're testing it out, saying like, all right, let's get, they said like, oh, we're just trying to make it, simpler for people in Europe to travel, especially like, if they work, let's say that, you live in France, but then you get a job like, just quickly, just over the border in Spain. So, but let's make it easy for, people in Europe to travel back and forth, for things like that. And, that's the thing. It's like they make it, they put out these things as like, it's like, oh, this is pretty reasonable. It's like, yeah, we should come up with like the system where, neighboring countries can, kind of like travel, back and forth from each other like pretty easily. It's like that's not such a bad thing. But then it's like, okay, so all right, let's just get rid of the borders now. And it's like, and then you're just like so used, you're just so used, you get used to the idea of being able to like come and go between countries without the hassle of like securing your visa or whatever, and trying to like kind of like jumping through hoops. And you're like, yeah, we should get rid of borders, huh? It's like they're and just
it's, and these ideas come about like where it's not just you don't go from like point A to like point B. It's more of a process of like that line keeps moving. Like, it's like, well, they're not going to agree with like this idea, but let's, like, well, what about this? Yeah, okay, that seems reasonable. And you keep pushing the line further and further down. And it's like, and after you get to a certain point, it's like, how the hell did we get to this point? And this is how, if you're not diligent with,
it's the analogy of the frog. If you take a frog and you try to put it in a pot of boiling water, it'll immediately jump out. But
exactly,
if you put a frog in a lukewarm pot and slowly bring up the heat, then the frog like becomes used to like the increasing heat, and then it eventually dies.
exactly.
And that's exactly what's been happening. Is they keep putting out like these kind of like reasonable ideas out there. These like these tiny like these things that's like of no real consequence. And then slowly and slowly and slowly, like we just like continue to like lower our guards, until like we're on the ground in a headlock, you know, frantically, frantically flailing our arms and legs, but it's too late. So
Yeah, and it's it starts out with something like seeming like, hey, we don't want to, deliberately like hurt people's feelings, and like or we don't want to, like, in the case of like our country, a lot of there's a lot of like the racial tension, like, so it's like, no, we don't want, like, this, we want to have the equal treatment between like races, and we want, like, we don't want people to be like deliberately horrible to each other. Fair, yeah, okay, that's great. Like,
again,
that
reasonable.
sounds really awesome. Like, I don't want like people to be like extremely mean to me, or vice versa. Like, I don't really want to be super mean to people.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start like, regulating language and thought, and where you're, no longer hiring based off of merit, or awarding things based off of merit, but it's like, well, you meet like a certain quota, or you have like a lowering of standards. It's like, well, how does that help anybody? What does that do for? How does that make people better? And several people have brought up the point is like, there should be more of just like, let people say what they're going to say, because the really like crazy people with the crazy ideas and language and terrible shit in their head, that's going to eventually, we'll see that it's like, yeah, that's way out there, nobody wants that.
Yeah,
And
it's
you kind of you kind of exile their thoughts and ideas.
yeah,
Whereas if you constantly like, oh nope, can't say that, or you censor certain things out, then it just, you give more credence to those crazy people.
right. And I mean, like with the case of Brittany Pettibone, Matt Martin Sellner, and Lauren Southern, it becomes kind of the Streisand effect. Whereas
Yep.
it's like, oh, well, why are these people banned? What have they been saying? Oh, I mean, I think I'm gonna go find out. And people look them up, and then they hear what they have to say, and so you're actually doing the exact opposite of what you intended. You're trying to suppress these people's ability to speak, but and trying to control what these people what the people within your country are exposed to, but then you end up just exposing them indirectly.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you.
Yes, I forget who it was. I was watching a video about this situation going on, and they did. Yeah, someone quoted Obi-Wan Kenobi. So if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you could imagine.
I wasn't trying to go for the Star Wars reference, but it was just low hanging fruit. I had to go.
Yeah,
there.
it was. I mean, again, it wouldn't be our channel if there weren't Star Wars or Simpsons reference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing behind that, like you said, yeah, it's the Streisand effect, where they become more, why is this person being banned? Like, what are they saying? And like, you have all these, and you have all these people saying all these negative and terrible things about that person. Mm-hmm. And me, in my kind of contrarian way of looking at things, like something where there's too many people that are saying something like about this person. Let me see if it's like actually accurate, not just be like the salmon swimming upstream. And it's like, well, wait a second, what they're saying is actually very reasonable, or you actually, like, what, like, they're making sense, or it's like, oh, what, actually everyone's right, this person's a fucking loon.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's just the thing. It's like that saying, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Right.
If these people are making mistakes, if they are saying something that is truly despicable, truly racist, truly bigoted, truly misogynistic, let them say it, and then let people see them for the pieces of shit that they are, and it'll be
Right.
and it'll be a natural kind of ostracization, because no one will want to deal with them, no one will want to work with them, so
Exactly.
allow people. It's like it's as though governments or people in power, they're like, oh, you guys are too stupid to know what's bad or good, so we'll let you know what's evil or good, and like these three people over here, they're evil, so you don't listen to anything that they have to say.
Right. Not that, not that I think he's a good person, but it's like, maybe Adolf wasn't so bad after all. It's with all like everyone became, everyone is Hitler now. Everyone is, all these like terrible people now. Where
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's hilarious where someone like Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire, who's an Orthodox Jew, by the
Yeah,
way,
he's an Orthodox Jew,
and they're
yarmulke
calling
and
him a Nazi.
everything.
It's like, I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't think an
Yeah, I don't
Orthodox Jew is a Nazi.
see that. That's another thing. Like, your opponents are idiots because they'll never do the research.
Well, and it's very true that uh, there's a lot of subjects that people, they politicians and newscasters and stuff, they'll spout off about certain things that you're watching. It's like, that doesn't seem right, and then you go and you actually do, like, you read a book about like a certain event or something in history, and the scary thing is that you're already more learned about that subject than 98% of the population. That's insane. Like, that should not be the case. Like, why? Makes me wonder. Like, why would we, look up to these people, or it's like, why are we hiring these people if they don't even know what the hell they're talking about?
Um, yeah, I remember a while back. I think this was when Milo Yiannopoulos was still with Breitbart, and he was doing his Dangerous Faggot tour,
Yeah.
on college campuses. I remember he sent out a guy with a camera to just like kind of videotape the protests and things going on, and then the camera guy, stops and talks, stops and talks about, or talks to two students. I forget which school it was. I think it might have been like Arizona, or no, he never went to Arizona. Anyways,
Some college campus somewhere.
yeah, campus somewhere in America. Covered all my bases. Uh, and so he was just talking to talking to two students, and then one of it, one kind of falls away, but the other one just kind of like keeps talking. And he openly admits, like, "Oh, I don't even know who this guy is. My friend just told me that he was a bad guy, so I came, so I came to, protest him." It's like, what? It's like, you don't. He's like, you don't know who he is. You never heard a word uttered from his mouth. Yet, just because your friend says that, oh, he's a bad man, we have to go. You felt compelled to go and protest him.
Yeah.
Like, you
Wow.
literally don't. You literally don't know what you're talking about.
Pretty much. That, the scary thing is that is, the majority of people. Like, they don't think, they just say stuff, or they hear an editorial or an opinion from someone, and they're not even hearing it from like the source of the person giving the opinion. Like, they're hearing it like third hand, and it's like, yeah, yeah, and like they spout off all these things about the certain person or subject, and it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about, do you?
So he's saying is we have to all go and read coloring books.
Yeah, you're right. Oh man.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're
Well,
talking about.
the thing is, and I remember uh, talking to Joyce about this because she was kind of concerned about her like lack of knowledge of like history or how the government works and stuff like that. And I was like, don't worry, you and 98% of the rest of the American population, they don't fucking know either. That's the scary thing.
Right.
So if you even learn, like just a scotch, you'll be more learned than hell. Sometimes like they know how the government. There's some people who you learn a little bit about the government. Hey, you know better than some of the politicians that actually work for the damn government and how it works.
Word. Do you see that cringeworthy video of the Utah um, like assembly people talking about how laws are passed or whatever over the music over like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song?
No, I did not.
Oh my god, it's so awful. So awful. They're like they're trying to make like government procedure like accessible and and interesting, and okay, good on you, applause where applause is due, but it was just so bad.
Oh man. Yeah,
Stop
I'll have to look that
stop
up.
ruining my childhood.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
But
it's just
yeah,
like
it's scary how there's okay, maybe you don't like there's kind of a similar thing where people go on the street like asking about like who the presidents were, and uh it's one thing, okay, fine, you don't know like who the 20th president was or whatever, but when you don't even know like who the current vice president is, or I'm not saying that you have to know like every like representative and congressperson, but like when you don't even know who the vice president is today, that's really sad.
yeah, we're absolutely. I mean,
Why would
yeah,
I
it's funny
even know
because
that?
yeah, no, I see those, kind of like like jaywalking. I mean, for those of you too young, Jay Leno used to host a Tonight Show, and he had this segment called Jaywalking, where he'd go out and just talk to random people and like kind of ask them general knowledge questions.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing a couple of these, not from Jay Leno or any of the recent or late night hosts, but they're just going out and asking about like, oh, who was the first president, and then like, oh, Abraham Lincoln is famous for what, or famous for doing what as president, and just like, oh, like kind of like with the shrugs and
Here's a
like.
bum. Yeah.
I don't know, inventing Lincoln Logs. It's like,
Yeah. It's like, oh, he was a bum, right? He was the bum president.
yeah, the president, right, right. Or he was the big fat one, right? Like,
uh,
but
anyway, he only
yeah,
has
it's just
his face carved on a mountain.
huh?
He only has his face carved on a mountain.
Let's say that again.
He only has his face carved on a mountain.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, like, yeah, they do that for everybody. You tie your shoes in the morning, you get your face chiseled into the side of a mountain.
Exactly.
Right? They're just giving those away.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty sad.
yeah, I mean, just like like you were saying, just like a little bit of knowledge makes you more of an expert than most people. And it's like kind of like similar with like the whole thing about with guns nowadays. Um, because they constantly, they don't, when people talk about guns, but they use terms incorrectly or yeah, when they just use terms incorrectly, that they don't know, jack shit about, about the topic, especially guns.
So where you hear stuff like fully semi-automatic, it's like
Oh
that's not a
yeah,
thing.
that's
That
not
is
a thing
not
at
a thing.
all. Because
Oh
yeah,
boy,
because all because technically then all weapons are semi-automatic.
they are the majority. Well, the only ones that I think are sold to the public for there's no automatic weapons sold.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're
Uh,
dealing with those the antique like kind of like double action revolvers.
yeah, but like the majority of handguns and rifles are semi-automatic.
Right. Or
It's
when they
not a
mislabel guns. I remember this news person, probably from CNN. Don't hold me to that. She was talking
it's
about
probably
she was talking about guns, and they showed like a clip. It's like, yeah, just like this clip right here of this man using an AR-15, and it was a freaking shotgun. You know how I
oh
know?
yeah, I saw that too. It's like what the that's not
Yeah, so look at
a
the
AR-15.
devastation one can do with an AR-15, but it was a shotgun. And you know how I know it was a shotgun? Because one, I'm vaguely familiar with firearms, and two, the guy was like pumping. He's like, after each
Yeah,
shot,
the
he was
pump. Yeah,
pumping.
I saw that same clip. It's like that's not a AR-15. That's a pump action shotgun. Completely different.
Right? And arguably does more damage than the AR-15,
Way more damage.
right?
The thing will blow a hole through your like chest.
Yeah, it'll blow a hole in your chest the size of a basketball.
Yeah, it's that's a powerful weapon.
Seriously. So yeah, and I mean, yeah, and then it's kind of sad that that the networks, they're throwing they're touting these kids. They're basically using them as puppets, you know, to further their the anti-gun agenda. Because I mean, empathy and sympathy for these kids for what they have to go through. I mean, I don't, God forbid my child ever has to go through that. But you guys are being completely used as political tools.
The thing that I wonder, and I do believe that there are some who are maliciously kind of creating some of this rhetoric because they do want to um, take away the Second Amendment, that gives us the right to protect ourselves, which gives
Right.
us, a modicum of freedom and power that, we could, we have, because, the government isn't for the government. The country isn't for the government. The country is ours. It's for the
Yes.
people. We're the ones that have the power. We've kind of lost sight of that in the last, God knows how many years. But
Yeah, I think I read that somewhere. The power of the government comes from the consent of the governed.
yeah,
I think
it's
I read that somewhere.
some document somewhere. I
Yeah,
don't know.
something from somewhere.
It's the Constitution, folks.
Yes.
But,
Spoiler alert. It's in the Constitution.
but I think that the majority of people are very are uninformed, and because guns they're dangerous. Yeah, if they're especially if they're used in the wrong way, it's a very dangerous tool.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, but so are hammers, so
I
are
think a lot of
saws.
people are that they shy away from it because like, oh, it's kind of it's powerful, it can hurt people. I don't know if I want to like have that responsibility and touch it. That's fine. Like I as a advocate of the Second Amendment, I don't own a firearm. I haven't felt the need to buy one, though that may be changing.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, I
I'm
think,
just at the point where I'm really thinking hard about that.
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, it's just, God dang, you made me lose my train of thought. Oh yeah, um, you know, you don't like guns, fine. Don't like guns, but don't like try and stop someone else from having guns.
Well, the thing is, it goes back to kind of like what we've been talking about. It's a strong misinformation, and you hear two or three things like second or third hand. You're not looking at like what's the point of the Second Amendment? And everyone thinks like, oh well, yeah, it's for fun or recreation or for
Yeah,
hunting.
for
It's like
hunting.
that's not what the Second Amendment was about. Or you get like the common thing that you hear from people. It's like, well, they had no idea that like they were thinking about muskets and all. It's like, no, they weren't. And plus, the musket wasn't the only gun that they had back then. They had a lot of powerful weapons
Yeah,
that they were using,
yeah. I
and
mean,
gun technology was already like starting to increase in that time. So obviously they know that was going to continue. Like the
yeah. Um,
they weren't thinking that the country would stay in 17, like in
yeah.
the
They didn't think.
16th
Yeah.
century.
I mean, again, yeah, because yeah, to judge the past by today's standards is what I believe it was Tim Keller who said, because he was talking about taking today's values or mores and applying it to the Bible, that was written in the past. It's chronological snobbery, and
Yeah,
it's the same thing for taking maybe like the values or the mores of today's America and applying it to the founding. And it's retarded. It's like, oh no, it's like yeah, yeah, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. They just thought that people were gonna wear powdered wigs and write with quills forever.
yeah. Um,
That's just
but
asinine.
the crazy thing is like that they were when that was being written, it almost wasn't put in just because it's like, yeah, it's common sense. Like, of course, people are gonna like have the right to like protect themselves and bear
Mm-hmm.
arms. But then obviously, I'm glad that they put it in because
I know, because even though, yeah,
it's
because it was, it's important. It was very smart and very important that they put it into the Constitution, putting it in writing. Because even though it was like, oh, of course, it doesn't have to be stated. Like, of course, you have the right to protect yourself. It's like,
yeah,
but like,
and
imagine if they didn't, and like we didn't have, because even because they were, so self-aware. The founders, they were so self-aware that governments can turn tyrannical within a generation
yeah,
that they had to put that in there in writing because it's like no, this has to be in there because people are dumb.
and that's the other thing that's, and we were also talking earlier in the stream how you don't go from like point A to like point Z right away. There's the people like kind of pushing that line down the road,
Mm-hmm.
and I see with the rhetoric and the way things are happening, you know, uh, that are happening in the country where people are trying to push that line down the road to the point where it's going to get where people are like, you know what, let's just get rid of the Second Amendment, or and eventually, like once we say like, we're going to give up this right for the betterment of America or whatever dumbass reason. Uh, and I have a feeling that at some point, hopefully I'll be long dead by that point, but where the people will willingly give up that right and they'll never get it back, and that will be the end of America as we know it.
No, exactly. I mean, there's some kid, I remember there was some clip where it was a free speech issue, and some dumbass kid said like, "Oh, it's like maybe we need to get rid of the First Amendment." I was kind of flabbergasted at the sheer ignorance of his statement.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, then you don't have a right to say anything either, because that's what the First Amendment is for. It's like he's like
Right.
I forget what they were protesting exactly, but probably from some sort of speaker. But they were they like this kid legitimately said like, well, maybe we should get rid of the First Amendment too. I think it was either like a gun thing or it was a speaker protest. But yeah, he's like, oh yeah, it's like, well, like maybe it's time for us to get rid of the First Amendment too. It's like, well, then you need to shut up then. So if that's the way you feel, because then you don't have a right to say anything either. So you
Right.
see,
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
see all these protesters, then this is illegal because the First Amendment also affirms your right to assemble peacefully. It also affirms the right for the society to have a free press, and that even includes like blogs. So like your little socialism is awesome blog is gone.
Yeah. Exactly. People really do not understand the importance of the rights that are given to us as Americans, and it's not even. It's
Well, I mean, not even
just
like given to us by. It's not like the government gives to us.
It's not the government.
The government
it's
recognizes that we have these rights.
rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The government recognizes that we have these rights and that they will not interfere or what's the fancy word I'm looking for? Interfere.
Infringe.
What?
Infringe, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What? Okay. We'll just use that. Yeah. Yeah. Infringe on those rights. That's all the Constitution is recognizing. It's like you have these rights. We won't interfere with them.
Yeah, and that's
or we're not supposed to interfere with them.
God, I don't even know. Does anyone like study like the Constitution or the Bill of Rights anymore? Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I think we just got like we did like a quick glance over it in my high school government class. I mean, we're told about the three branches for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I hear like what's being like taught in schools now, and it seems very much like very anti-America. Like we don't, talking about like all the horrible, atrocities that we apparently committed. Some of which yes, some of which are like no, that's not exactly what happened. But there used to be like some sort of modicum of patriotism that we had,
right. Or like the understanding, like yes, these horrible things happen, but we eventually corrected them.
Right?
But like it's like oh yeah, America had slavery. It's like oh well, do we still have slavery? Like no.
Yeah. But the idea that that America is a truly free country, and that here's what is you as a citizen, this is what you have, as far as rights go, and that just I don't hear that being kind of taught anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is why the education system has failed us, and that's why we have freaking black millionaires kneeling for a flag that freed their ancestors.
Right? Yeah.
Because I mean, like think about it. Like,
we're not the Confederate States of America. We're the United States of America. Is that that was the flag that eventually like got rid of slavery.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing about the slave trade is like you think that Whitey was humping it in the jungle, nope. Going out capturing these people. It's like no, it was other black people, other black people from different tribes going out after their enemies and bringing them to the white people to sell them off. So it's like, so I mean, in a way, they were doing it to themselves.
Yeah, it's which is not, and that's it's still horrible. Like no one's
Yes,
saying
no,
it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we
yeah,
don't
I mean,
blame
I
their
say that tongue in cheek, like kind of like tongue in cheekly, but of course, it was horrible. I'm not saying that just
woo
because
slavery.
I know,
It's like
woo,
no
slavery
one's
rocks.
ever said that.
No, 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 not
Yeah.
of course not. Of course not. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just stating like realities.
Yeah, it's also kind of the same thing with like the the misinformation and people not looking at the real, not wanting to really look into like what causes an issue, and kind of the same idea with that comes up with, seems like, with every sort of like any sort of like mass shooting or troubled kids, or in some sort of capacity. It's like, well, it's because of the video games. It's like they're the violent video games that kids are into like nowadays, and I think that is a very common scapegoat in a lot of ways. And now I do think it's good, like I that there is kind of like a rating system. I, as an adult, I don't give a crap about them anymore. But yes, there are certain games that aren't for kids, and I think one of the falsehoods with gaming now is that uh, that it's just for kids, which is no longer the case, because the kids that grew up with games like you or myself, like that age group, is now, they're the ones that are designing new games, and they're wanting to design it for their own their own peers, like people like us, our age group.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, there is a sense of realism, or a sense of more mature content that's out there that isn't meant for kids. And people who don't do anything with games or whatever, it's like, well, yeah, little Johnny, like I bought him this Grand Theft Auto game, and it was very violent, and it was a very bad influence on him. It's like, well, first of all, what fucking parent like is buying their 10-year-old Grand Theft Auto? Are you an idiot? Like, do you not do you do any sort of parenting? Why are you letting your kid play 12 hours of games like in a day? Like, that's stupid. Like, you're essentially like blaming something else when you're the problem. You're the one that's not giving your kid boundaries, or you just give in to your kids and let them do whatever they want. So there's that aspect. The other aspect is that well, I say that it's like, as a kid, we watched a lot of probably movies, and we played a lot of games, or did whatever. That's like, we probably shouldn't have done that as kids. I look back as like, dude, I watched so many like rated R movies and played a lot of games that I probably shouldn't have when I was a kid. But the one thing is that that's different with me is like, I know the difference between reality and fiction. And if you have a kid that can't differentiate between the two, maybe he shouldn't. First of all, he should probably be getting some sort of help, when it's kind of the sign of insanity when you can't separate between reality and fiction. And so if you think that, like, well, I'm shooting up all these people in this game, so I'm just going to do that in real life. Yeah, that's no sane person is making that connection. It's like,
I mean, yeah, because like with the Parkland kid, there are multiple warning signs. There are people actually calling up, the police or the FBI, saying, hey, this kid's kind of nutty. And he's talking about, stabbing people, killing people, shooting people, and and it went unnoticed, and it went completely disregarded. He literally fell through the cracks of the system. because
Yeah, and it's what there was more, there was a hell of a lot more problems that were uh, blame it on bad upbringing, uh, blame it on just mental illness,
mhm.
uh,
Yeah,
blame it on like there's so many other factors that like and the other thing that a lot of people is like, sometimes people are just fucked up and evil. Like that's the reality.
yes, I
Sometimes
know. I mean,
they're
I live in a
I
reality
believe
where I
people,
recognize that there's evil in the world. You know,
it's from from like Alfred says, like there's some people that just it's they just want to watch the world burn. There are people
some
out
men
there
just
that are
won't
like
watch
that.
the world burn.
Exactly. And there's just some people who
Yeah.
are
I
fucked
mean,
up.
yeah, and I mean, to come back, like, you know, ultimately, the government that people so want to relinquish their guns to is the ones that messed up. They let this kid down majorly.
Yeah.
Especially with, like, I forget what the policy is called, but it allows you not to report a student and not give him a record.
Yeah,
It's
it's they're just like,
it's like, oh, he's just a
fuck
kid.
it.
He's gonna make it. He makes mistakes. Let's not ruin his life. It's like,
Yeah, no, honestly.
okay, and it comes back to, like, that, whole, like, reasonable kind, that kind of reasonable sounding arguments. Like, yeah, like, oh yeah, he's just a kid. We don't want to ruin his life with a formal charge, and, like, we don't want this to stain his record. But if he was, if, let's say that policy wasn't in effect, and he was able to be charged, he wouldn't have been able to get that gun then, because he would have had that charge on his record. Even that
Exactly.
one charge, like, say, like, he, the charge of him, what was one of them? Like, making threats to, like, classmates or whatever. Like, that would have been on record. They would have, put that within his file, and when he tried to go get that gun and then run that background check, he would have been flagged. It's like, nope, you're not, you can't get this gun.
Yeah, it's and that's the government that we're supposed to hand our guns over to. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think so.
yeah, now, yeah, like, they only implemented that policy is so they could say that, oh, the number of kids being reported for that basically is like, it was a PR move to make it to fix to cook the books a bit, to show that, oh, we're having less disciplinary problems.
Yeah,
That's all it was. I mean, again, like, maybe, yes, like, for the few kids who are just being dumb kids and not wanting to ruin your life. Okay, I understand that, but ultimately it was to show that, hey, look, we're not the number of kids who get reported for almost felony behavior is down. Look how great we're doing.
right. And because I work with kids too, like around that age group, like you're at the high school age,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, the majority of those kids are like they're good kids. Yeah, they mess up like here and there, but like they're not threatening to shoot up their school or like like they like I said. The idea sounds like reasonable. It's like, oh, we don't want to ruin this kid's life with like this formal like charge or whatever, which or and in some cases makes sense. Like if it's something like dumb like vandalism, like where it's like, oh, he spray painted a wall, or something like kind of like really ticky tacky or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. But like when you're threatening the lie, when you threaten somebody, like that's
Yeah,
pretty
and he was like,
serious.
yeah, and demonstrating some kind of, like, some kind of diminished capacity, or demonstrating like some sort of, like, diminished emotional capacity. Like, he sucked, he sicked his dog on, like, a neighbor's, like, chicken coop.
Yeah, it's
right? And then he brought like knives and I mean not guns, but he brought knives and bullets to class in his backpack.
yeah,
I don't know about you, but I'd call those red flags.
yeah. I would have been like, you know what? I don't. It's like either I would have had I been there, and it's like if the school doesn't do anything, I'm out of here. Like I'm not going. I wouldn't go to that school.
Yeah,
Like
or
and it's
yeah,
like
if
I
I,
tell
as
my
a
parents
parent,
like
it'd be like, if I found out about this, like, oh yeah, so and
I
so
would have.
brought bullets and knives. I was like, okay, you're staying home from
I'd be
school for
raising
a month,
holy hell at that. I'd be raising holy hell at that school. It's like either this kid goes or I'm out. Like this is not cool.
right?
This is not safe.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it comes back to the idea of like responsibility, because it's not this, because as much as this kid was messed up in the head or whatever, like it's the parent, it's the adult, it's the grown ups around this kid that ultimately let him down.
Yeah.
Because like yes, so what if he got a formal charge? Are you like is this gonna help him or hurt him? I mean, ultimately, I think reporting him to the police and having him, having that charge on his record is ultimately going to help him, and you know, you know, uh, it could have potentially saved those 17 other kids or 17 other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
so, I think, you kind of, I forget who was I watching, but yeah. Oh, I was listening to Scott Adams. Uh, if you don't know who Scott Adams is, he's the creator of the Dilbert comic strip.
Oh yeah, great. I love Gilbert.
Yeah, but he was talking about people would like to say like the law is a law, but if that was the case, then you shouldn't get upset. If a cop tickets you for going, like, if the speed limit is 35 and you go 37, and the cop tickets you for going 2 miles above the speed limit, you shouldn't get mad at him because the law is the law.
Right.
But I think it's like, so we have to we have to remember the law, but then we have to wait. We also have to apply it accordingly. You
Right.
know? And I think in this case, um, the law's a law, and then you see this kid's demonstrated behavior over the years, and it's like, okay, we need to this is gonna help him, it's this is gonna help him, and it's not gonna hurt him, or it might hurt him
Well,
it might
granted,
hurt him
he could
in
have got.
the immediate, but in the long term, it's gonna help him.
Yeah, he could have gotten the psychiatric help that he really needed because
Right.
that guy is fucked up in the head.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, and it just comes back to like all of these government agencies failed him. The FBI, the child protective
Sheriff's Department.
child protective services, the sheriff's department, public schools, the public school system. I don't know. Well, I don't know if that school in Florida was public, but regardless, these are all like kind of government institutions, and they failed this kid. And then and then they want us to give up our rights to protect ourselves and give them all the guns.
Yeah, never gonna happen.
Never gonna happen. And it's stupid because even if you say that you're anti-gun, you're not anti-gun. Because you want the gun to be taken away, and how is that going to happen? By use of another gun.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
you're not anti-gun at all. You're pro-gun. It's like, but you're also pro-government.
What's funny is like you get a lot of these celebrities who are very anti-gun,
Mm-hmm.
yet they consistently have themselves surrounded by armed security. It's like, well, if you were really anti-gun, you wouldn't have your guards have guns.
Right,
It's like
exactly. Yeah, you just have them have like mace or whatever. And also, like, they, people, usually poo-poo the idea of a good, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is with a good guy with a gun. And they constantly slam down like, oh, that's not true. That's ridiculous. It's like, no, you actually do, because, if shit goes down, who are you calling? The police.
yeah.
The good guys with guns. But by the time they get there, it'll probably be too late.
I figure I could stop a gun with a good old slap fight.
I know, right? Or I'll just quickly, stick in the ground in front of them like a sign that says "gun free zone."
Whoops! That's the.
I know. It's like
that's gonna stop them.
It's like that, right? Like the only way to stop a gun is with a sign that says "gun free zone."
Yeah, it's the funny thing is, when I was younger, because my grandparents were, they were gun collectors,
Mm-hmm.
and they were obviously very pro gun, and
right.
I mean, they had my grandfather probably had about 4 gun safes. I mean, they were full.
4
he had
gun
just
safes.
A lot of guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and he was very, pro Second Amendment, and I didn't really understand that a lot as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I look back now, unfortunately he's passed away now, but, I look back
any of
on
those guns?
No, they're still around. I think my uncle has them now, but
okay.
I look back on those conversations and I realized that I thought my grandfather was kind of a little bit kooky. Well, he is, but like I always thought he was a little bit like kind of kooky and crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of wisdom into what he was saying, and I get what now that I'm older, that I'm more mature, that I see the world, in a different lens now as an adult. It's like, man, I think my grandfather was right that all these years about that guns are they're dangerous, but they're a great tool that help us to exercise our freedom and liberty, and to protect. It's a way for us to protect ourselves from dangerous people, but from to protect our freedoms that we have. Because yes, we have these freedoms; they're God-given rights, but there's always a chance for them to be threatened, and people trying to take them away. And this is how we prevent that.
Right.
And as a kid, like I said, I thought he was crazy. I was like, what? That seems, nobody's trying to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm older, it's like, dude, it's happening. Like he saw it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, after every truck attack, they're not calling for the ban of trucks, or someone gets stabbed with a knife. There's no Or there's a killer that uses a knife to kill like 5 people. It's like there's no calls like, oh, ban knives, ban all the knives.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of like I said, I look back and like my grandfather was actually he was a crazy man, but he was a very wise man at the same time. Like he was there was also something a little bit more of a funny note is he always he was kind of a loner in a sense, that he always he craved being independent and not having he didn't really care for people all that much. Great, he had a good heart, but he really didn't like people all that much, and I don't blame him. Now that I'm older, and he's like, if I had my way, I would just live in a cave in the mountain with my dog and my guns, and that would be it. I was like, as a kid, I was like, that sounds so sad. But now that I'm older, and obviously I live in a, he lived in a really small town, and I live obviously we both live in the San Fernando Valley, and kind of Los Angeles County, where it's just we're piled on top of each other.
Your pappy was country folk. We city folk.
Yeah, we're city slickers.
Hmm.
And but I look at it now, it's like, you know, I don't think it would be a cave in the mountain for me. Like, I would just want like to live on some sort of island by the beach by myself, and just
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't
sometimes.
mind living up in the mountains in a cabin.
But yeah, just being away from people. Like, he lived in a town of maybe 100 people, and obviously we live in a city of millions, and it's
Hmm.
like, I get it. Like, it now I see why he was saying that. It's like, God,
Yes, now
I
you
would
see,
die for
yeah,
that.
yeah, you're starting to see the appeal. You're starting to see the appeal.
Yeah, it's people are crazy, man. Like, it's almost suffocate. There sometimes where people can be very suffocating at times.
Mm.
Don't I like I love people. Like, obviously I talk with people all the time, and obviously I have to interact with a lot of people, and I have a lot of good, like, really great friends like you and the guys on the podcast. And
Hmm.
but man, there's sometimes where it's overwhelming. You kind of need to like decompress and be by yourself, alone.
I know what you mean. I know what
Yeah,
you mean.
but yeah, it's crazy times that we live in, Andy. Crazy
Yes,
times.
indeed,
But
indeed that
one
is.
thing, because I know we're getting close to our time, but one thing I want to urge whoever listens to this, our normal audience, or if you're listening currently, or you're going to be listening to this later, I really encourage you guys uh, to go through the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the things that are awarded to you as a citizen of this country. Not because, I'm not going to say like, oh, you need to buy a gun, or you need to do the this or that, but I really encourage you to understand what it is, the rights that we're awarded to in this country, because a lot of people don't know. And I think you'll start to really appreciate. Well, this has never been. It's no country is ever going to be perfect. Like that, no person is perfect in this world. It's never not going to happen. But uh, this country is the greatest experiment in the history of countries, and it's worked for some 300 plus years, because uh, people want these liberties. Where these are liberties granted to us by, uh, higher power, or God, or whatever you believe in. Like, that these rights are given to us uh, as people, and as of right now, the government allows us to exercise those freedoms. And yeah, you should just, but you should know what's awarded to you, like what these rights are, um, and don't let people push you around and try to infringe upon those freedoms, because before you know it, if you don't stand up for them, you don't protect them, they're gonna go away, because someone's gonna snake charm you into giving up those freedoms that you didn't know you had, and once they're gone, they're gone. Like, you're never gonna get them back.
Well said. Well said. Just yeah, just to put a little bow on it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For those of you who've been watching us since the very beginning, I recounted a tale, not my own, but of you know, uh, of a former instructor of mine. You know, talking about how they did this trip, and then they brought along these other people, and then they went on this trip like to like the desert with no permission slip, no insurance forms or waivers or anything like that. Nothing happened. But then one day, someone was being a jerk and goofing off, and and like broke his leg. And now from that point on, they always had to get permission form. They always had to get insurance a thing, and they always had to have the students sign a waiver uh, indemnifying the school from any responsibility if the student got hurt. And that's just like that's just a small, tiny example of, once if you don't protect something, then you'll lose it, and you'll never be able to get it back. Because it's easy to get regulations put on, but it's hard to get regulations taken off.
Yeah, it's yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. And I guess that'll be the hour. Well, hour and 15. So yeah, that's I don't know, Robert. Did you want to leave the audience with any final thoughts?
Yeah, I get. Well, yeah, like I said, we got to protect our freedoms. We're the only country that has all of these freedoms. That some have like a couple, or some have them to an extent. But we're the only country that has, we have like liberty and freedom to really like pursue and do pretty much anything that we want. And the other thing is like, sure, you could be an asshole doing it, but eventually that does catch up to you. Like the
marketplace will sort itself out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was trying to go for.
Yeah.
But this kind of whole like argument that we've been talking about, and to end on a little bit of a lighter note, one of the gaming franchises I love so much is Assassin's Creed. It's one of the more like modern franchises that are out that I really, really like. And that's kind of the idea between these two opposing sides, the Assassins Order and the Templars. Both want both sides really kind of want the same thing. They want freedom and order and justice. Whereas, but the difference is, you have the Assassin's Order who believes that this should be done like people should have like the liberty to pursue those things and go after those things on their own. Whereas the Templar Order like believes that they have to control and micromanage and like kind of force people into like kind of having this freedom. And I kind of think that that's what we're really on the side of now, where you have people who are trying to lobby for our liberties to continue, and you have the other side that is trying to thought control and force control people into peace and stability. And it's just that's not a world I want to live in. I don't want people micromanaging my thoughts and feelings and what I should think or what I should do and say. I want to be able to freely listen to different ideas, whether I like them or not, to have like discussions like we have on a weekly basis, or that like I have with people like on Twitter or whatever. That's how people grow and change. And it's not when you hold people down, you hold you hold progress down when you control and manipulate people.
Well said. All right, that will do it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. I know it was a little bit more serious, I think, but we started off pretty light, and I think we got to a place where we are leaving with you with some hope and a challenge.
Yeah,
and a challenge.
I wish I I wish I had a Leftist Tears Tumblr right now. Because it would be full, let me tell you.
Yes, it surely is. I know. I still need to get that subscription to Daily Wire. But anyways, yes, thank you for joining us. Don't forget that you can join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Feel free to join in the conversation, and not in that stupid Pepsi way, but get yes, the live chat is up, so you could tell us you could tell us your perspective, or you could ask us our opinion on certain things. So yes, and yeah, and you could no restrictions. Just tell us what you think. Tell us how we're doing. If you're tired of our stinking faces, what have you.
That works for
Yes.
me.
Yes. So yes, every Tuesday, come join us. Don't forget. Don't forget about Robert's show, Up by Up Down, which a very special episode will be dropping this Thursday. Yes, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell notification, because just hitting subscribe is not enough. Thanks to YouTube, you have to hit that little bell icon, and then you have to decide like how often you want to get notifications, like all the time, some of the time, or none of the times.
Yep.
So just be sure to click that bell icon. Yeah, so special episode dropping this Thursday. Check it out. Don't forget to follow us on our social medias: Twitter at podcastcoj, and Instagram Circle of Jerks Podcast. All right, and that'll do it for us tonight. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.